the White House to Congresswoman Maxine Waters calling for public shaming of Trump staffers. There's an uncivil war happening in the United States right now. Pulitzer Prize-winning historian and author John Meacham reveals how serious the stakes are in his new book, The Soul of America, The Battle for Our Better Angels. And he joins us right now. First of all, I'm your former intern, and I had to say that because you still intimidate me, and you did the same when I was 20 years old. But I'm so glad you're here. You know, we were talking about the Supreme Court this morning. Are you surprised that the Supreme Court upheld President Trump's travel ban?
Not given the composition of the court. If you wanted yet another exhibit of why elections matter, this decision this morning is right up there. The great triumph of the Mitch McConnell strategy of obstruction in the last year of President Obama's term to keep that seat has paid dividends for the conservative part of the Republican Party. I think to some extent, part of the Republican Party did in fact sell their soul for the Supreme Court. And this is a 40-year strategy of theirs. And so I wasn't totally surprised. I suspect this also means that Justice Kennedy will wear oxygen all the way through his term.
You say it's a 40-year sentence is the way it makes the strategy. Can't they be impeached?
Well, they haven't been since 1802. Which we can talk about if you want. That's what Megan wanted me to come talk about, was the 1802 impeachment. No, but we appoint them younger now, and so it really is. It's like a biblical 40 years.
Yeah, God. Right. You know, it seems to me that some of his worst policies, like Charlottesville, Puerto Rico, the travel ban, what's going on at the border, have one thing in common: fear of the other.
Absolutely right.
And why is that working? In this country of, wonderful democracies and what have you?
It's working because it has always worked to some extent. I don't like it when people say this isn't America, because that lets us off the hook.
Right.
What President Trump is the most vivid manifestation of some of our worst instincts.
Yes.
And what I think is the fear of the other, the paranoid style, the idea that there's a conspiracy, that immigrants are coming. I mean, in the 1920s, we had 50,000 Klansmen march down Pennsylvania Avenue without wearing masks. There were 3 to 5 million members of the Klan not 100 years ago. And when people say, oh, somehow or another we've been hijacked in 2016, we weren't. We were pushed back. And to some extent, what the president's governing on is a politics of grievance and white nostalgia, honestly.
Oh, yeah. And fear of people who are not white.
Otherism.
Taking over.
And the terrible thing, one of the many terrible things about this, is the presidents we remember, the public figures we remember, the John McCains, the George Herbert Walker Bushes, the Franklin Roosevelts, are those who reached out in hope, not in fear. They're ones who reached beyond their base. This is not a partisan point. I voted for Democrats and Republicans. But historically speaking, the presidents we want to emulate and the presidents we commemorate are the ones who pointed forward, not at each other.
He doesn't care about that.
Well, here's why I wonder. If I had 3 minutes with him, which is highly unlikely, for various reasons, and that might be his extension span, 3 minutes, I'd be pushing it. But I would say we know you care about ratings, we know you care about success. So I have what I call the oil portrait test. What do you want us to think, Mr. President, when we look at your oil portrait? And it has a good chance of working because he can't imagine a world where we're not gazing adoringly at his oil portrait. And when you look at Franklin Roosevelt, you could think about Japanese-American internment, but we tend to think about the New Deal. We think about the war, the victory against tyranny.
Right.
Hope is fear is a good starter. Hope is what history rewards.
That's right.
I love that.
Thank you.
And I love your book also because it really is, it really sets the tone for, I think, what we're seeing and explains what's going on. But we've been having this debate at this table about the public shaming that we've been seeing, especially about Sarah Sanders. And she was asked to leave a restaurant because of her ties in the administration. I was certainly in the minority here because I don't think it's wrong. I think it's very American to take a stand when there are public officials. There are even public officials that won't even meet with their very constituents. What is your take?
I'm honestly conflicted about this. I think you reap what you sow. And I think the president has pushed bullying to the front. When John McCain conceded the presidency to Barack Obama, he mentioned the dinner that TR held for Booker T. Washington, the first time a black man had been invited to the White House officially, and said, we've gone from a controversy over that to the election of a president. That was a statesman-like, that was the best of America. That was our better angels. What we have now is a bully in chief. We've gone from a bully pulpit to a bully in the pulpit, basically.
And those that apologize for him.
Yeah, and exactly. And so I know we're supposed to turn the other cheek. That's what Jesus said, but there's a reason there's only one Jesus. You know?
Yeah. He was a singular sensation.
You know, you're a historian, obviously, and I have bets that I think Trump has a high likelihood of getting reelected in 2020. Do you agree with me?
I do, because presidential elections are not referenda, they're choices. Remember, Donald Trump wasn't the only person on the ballot. And in fact, in many ways, Secretary Clinton was the one Democrat he probably could have beaten for a variety of reasons, including the fact that there were 10 presidential elections between 1980 and 2016, and a Bush or a Clinton was on 80% of those tickets.
Wow.
So if people wanted a change, they really wanted a change. I think it depends to a large extent on who the Democrats put up, because it won't simply be about Trump. It'll be about who else do you want
to have somebody in mind?
I have to cut you off. I'm so sorry. You're still my boss. You'll always be my boss. Thank you so much to John Meacham. His new book, The Soul of America, The Battle for Our Better Angels, is available now, and members of our audience are going home with a copy.